twin girls were conceived in 1992 but were only born in 2020 from frozen eggs. When a couple donated embryos that were frozen in a Midwest facility in 1992, Tina Gibson was almost 2 years old. One of the embryos was placed in Ms. Gibson, an elementary school teacher in Knoxville, Tennessee, in February 2020. In October of that same year, Ms. Gibson gave birth to a 6-pound, 13-ounce child. Ms. Gibson and her husband, Ben, named her Molly. The record for the longest frozen embryo to give birth to a living child was broken with the birth. The National Embryo Donation Center in Tennessee states that Molly's older sister, Emma, was born in 2017 following the implantation of an embryo from the same donor couple in Ms. Gibson, setting a record for that particular event. According to Ms. Gibson, "We feel so blessed that God decided so long ago that this was going to be our family. Other than these children, I can't fathom wanting children. All they're intended to be is ours." The process that resulted in Molly's birth started on October 14, 1992, when an embryo was frozen. The longest period an embryo had been stored before resulting in a live birth was when it was thawed. In February 2020, according to Martha Earle, director of the University of Tennessee Preston Medical Library, she claimed to have read through papers in medical journals and to not have found any published case in a medical journal of a live birth of an embryo that had been frozen for more than 20 years. According to Dr. Jeffrey Keenan, director of the National Embryo Donation Center, a Christian group that carried out the transfers, Molly's birth demonstrates that there is no temporal limit on how long an embryo can be stored, despite the fact that freezing methods have evolved dramatically since the 1990s. He stated, "The embryo should have the same chance as a freshly created embryo if it survives the thaw well. There is no old embryo." According to Dr. Mindy S. Christiansen, the medical director of the Johns Hopkins Fertility Center, the birth is an exciting development that will enable fertility physicians to reassure prospective parents that an embryo frozen for years, even decades, will stay viable. "How long can embryos be frozen?" is a question that patients frequently ask, she said. The response is frequently, "We don't really know. We can now declare with certainty that infants born from 27-year frozen embryos exist." According to Dr. Siegel Klipstein, head of Envia Fertility Specialists' Egg Donation Program in Chicago, the amount of time an embryo is frozen is not a crucial piece of information for fertility specialists. The quality of the embryo at the time of freezing is the issue, the speaker stated. Should the embryo be of high quality, we expect it to maintain its quality both during the freezing and thawing processes. According to Ms. Gibson, her husband and she chose to use donated embryos after reading an article in the news about a lady who had attempted to conceive using a similar method. The Gibsons had been trying to adopt a child for 5 years, but the adoption procedure was fraught with difficulties. Because Tina, 29, found out she was a carrier of cystic fibrosis and Ben, 36, has the disease, they were apprehensive to proceed with in vitro fertilization. According to Ms. Gibson, they were afraid of infecting their kids with the illness. They learnt about the donor parents' ages, physical attributes, educational and medical histories, and even their hobbies, when they started investigating donor embryos at the donation center. The embryos' ages were not specified. Ms. Gibson stated that initially, she had been anxious about it, but she soon relaxed when Dr. Keenan assured her that it would not affect the baby's health. She remarked, "Both pregnancies went smoothly. Everyone is in excellent health." The couple chuckles nowadays about the age of the embryos. "Emma is an ancient soul, as we usually joke," Ms. Gibson remarked. "When she does something, I tell her, that's your inner 90s kid coming out." In contrast to using IVF, which is significantly more expensive, Dr. Keenan reported that his institution has produced close to 1,000 live births from donated embryos. Biological parents with fertilized eggs remaining after using the procedure to start their own families have a few choices: giving them away, keeping them frozen indefinitely, giving them to others, or sharing them for medical research. Because there are more embryos than people require for IVF, Dr. Christiansen said she has noticed a rise in the number of people donating embryos at her practice. Given that other families might raise their biological offspring, most parents still have mixed feelings about donating their embryos, according to her. After having twin boys and girls via IVF, Shane and Tiffany Ogle decided to donate their 4 remaining embryos. About 3 years ago, one of those embryos resulted in the live birth of a daughter. They pay the youngster a visit once or twice a year and receive regular updates from her parents. Donating the embryos was a no-brainer, according to Tiffany Ogle, 40, of Maryville, Tennessee, about 18 miles south of Knoxville.